That's the challenge of any artist now is how do you do it without selling your soul?
Another artist that you've worked with is Ariana Grande, and you've worked on multiple tracks with her.
Yeah.
As we all know, she's now starring in Wicked.
The fact that she even popped out a #1 pop album earlier this year is just like, what? Like, while I'm making the biggest movie in history.
Do you randomly text Tom Cruise now?
We text quite a bit.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's
awesome. I was just with him. I was with him on the set of Mission 8. You know the photo of him hanging upside down on the plane?
Yes. Are you there for that?
I'm literally in the helicopter holding the playback monitor for the director. I mean, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Tell me, are we gonna sink or swim? Tide's getting high, yeah, we might go under. Thinking we should jump right in, 'cause if we don't now, then we'll always wonder.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Spout podcast. I am your host, Tamara Dhia, and today we are joined by the legendary Ryan Tedder of OneRepublic, and we are in your studio in Los Angeles. So I can only imagine the kind of songs that have come out of this space. This specific studio is...
A lot of bad ones.
I highly doubt that. Like the hit maker himself, I highly doubt that. Well, this specific studio, has any of the songs come out of this space?
This room?
Yeah.
It's funny enough, we were just talking about Tate. We did Exes, actually.
Oh.
It was the fastest session of 2023. Was in this room. So yeah, Tate McRae, Exes.
Kisses to my exes who don't give a shit about me. Kisses to the next ones who think they can live without me.
So what is a fast session for you?
Exes was 45 minutes.
Wow.
We were rapping the entire album. When I mean like rapping, she was punching like, and like background vocals on like 3 songs, and like it was done. The whole album had been sent to mix mastering. The mastering deadline, this is a Friday. Mm-hmm. It was our last session. We started at like 11 a.m., 10 a.m. And I said to her, if we have everything done that we need to be done by 4 p.m., I had like a dinner or something that night to go to, like 6, 7 or something. I said, between 4 and 6, if we just get lucky or super inspired, let's do one more record. Cause she really wanted to push for one more. It was like, okay, by 4 p.m., we'll cut out. I'll have Tyler, my writer, who's assigned a runner. I'll tell him what we want. So I like texted him. I was like, come up with like 5 different track starts at this tempo in this key. Like we picked a key, we picked a tempo, we picked a vibe, and then we're gonna walk in. And the moment I walk in, start playing a track. And we walked in at 4 p.m. We have the whole voice memo documented. He hits record within 30 seconds of the track playing. At exactly the 32-second mark, you can like. I'm like singing the chorus to Exes, and that was at 4. At 4:45, once we had the chorus and the verse written, I was like, I have to cut out and edit vocals, and that was it. I mean, the song was written, and I left her to record the vocals with him, and then she came in the next day on Saturday, recorded it. We mixed it Monday. The mastering deadline was Tuesday night.
That's crazy. It seems so quick.
The song was out. The song was out less than 14 days later. It became the next single that fast. It was wild. We had Greedy was out, and then the label heard Exes and goes, we want to put this out now. I was like, it's almost Christmas. Why? No. And they're like, no, we have the momentum. Let's go. And it was 2 weeks or less from it was exactly 2 weeks because we wrote it on a Friday. It came out 2 Fridays later. That's so craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Yeah.
I mean, that says a lot, especially because you've been through so many amazing records.
Yeah, but some songs took me 6 months. You know what I mean? I just revisit them over and over again. And some songs, I start a chorus, and I don't come back to it till 2 years later. Mm-hmm. So you could argue, songs. No, you don't get an award for how fast a record was written, no matter how big it is. Like nobody cares, and that's the truth. Like Rick Rubin talks about speed. His whole thing is just get it out. Like finish it. Stop being precious. Get it out. Sgt. Pepper's already been made.
Right.
We're not going to beat it. You know what I mean? We're not going to beat it. Like it's not going to happen. Like there's a lot of albums that we're not going to beat. So just like get your song out, get it made. And whether you did it fast or you did it slow, who cares? Just get it out.
I know you just mentioned that a lot of songs take years to write. And, you just earlier this year released OneRepublic's 6th studio album, Artificial Paradise, which was led by the single Sink or Swim. And I know you've mentioned before that a couple of these songs took years to write. Is that true?
Yeah, that's it's weird, and I don't think we'll do this next time, but we did it on this album, which is, it's odd, but the timing of it, Artificial Paradise technically came at the end of the album cycle. So we started releasing singles 2 years prior in 2022, I think. We started releasing singles, and it took the first single was called West Coast.
I've been dreaming about the West Coast. Got some places that I don't know. Seeing signs for California. Trade the shade for something warmer.
The second single was called is I Ain't Worried.
Maybe
and-
people have heard of it.
Yeah.
I ain't worried about it right now. Keeping dreams alive. 1999 heroes. I ain't worried about it right now. Swimming in the floods. Dancing on the clouds below. I ain't worried about it.
And then we put out like 2 or 3 more. The funny thing is we did it in a more of a traditional sense. People don't realize that now because we're just in different times. But like back in the day, 10 years ago, you would drop 2 to 3 singles before you drop the album.
Right.
Like if you caught, and sometimes, or sometimes you drop just one single. If it was a big record, you drop the album, but you could still get 3 albums. The reason we did it this way is like, unless you're, I don't know, like Billie Eilish, right? Or Taylor, unless you're one of like 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of 1% of the artists out there.
Right.
Once an album is out in the streaming era, the album cycle's done. And so on one hand you go, okay, drop the album, let the fans pick. And then like if a song goes crazy, great. But then it's like a lot of work and a lot of time to not focus on one song, to not like build into it. And so for us, it's like, wait, I don't want to cook these songs. I want them to have their own slot. I want Runaway. And a lot of the stuff we do, even the songs that don't connect in a huge way in America, they'll turn into like massive records overseas for us. Our market's like 2/3 outside of America.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, like all of our streaming is like probably 60-40, if I'm being honest, 60-40 ex-US. So like we dropped a song last summer called Runaway that I love. It's one of my favorite songs in the album, most fun song to play live. It's like so fun, and it barely existed in the States. It was number 1 at Top 40 in Europe for 3 weeks straight last summer.
Run away, right now, let's just run away. All that talk, it's killing me. One last shot, hold on a minute. Oh, maybe I think we should run away.
And it was a big hit in Australia. Like we have these songs that like, it's a big world out there. So you'll have a song that'll go number 1 in Australia for 3 weeks. No one in America, we don't even play it here. We only play it when we're in Australia. We have like a couple of those records. We have a couple songs in like the German countries where they were number 1 on every chart, barely existed in America. And also, conversely though, we have songs that did really well in the States and Canada that weren't so big in Europe. So we adjust our set list kind of where we're touring, but that's for our fans and for this band, the importance of releasing 4 or 5 singles before we drop an album is critical, because if we just drop the album, we're not Billie Eilish. We're not like we're not cut from the same cloth. So like my expectation, and call me a cynic, no matter how good the songs are, I don't expect that we drop an album and then we get another 12 months of introducing the songs off the album to the fans as if they haven't heard them.
Right.
They've already heard them. And I also don't like to sit around and just like play the TikTok game and just like jump on every trend and then hope let's pay 40 micro influencers and just gas up track 5 off the album. It's like I'm too cynical for that. So
You've also been in the game so long, so you've seen both sides of that, the way that formula works.
you know when you're winning. When listen, I'm not saying anything about the quality of the music. Quality of music aside, assume that you love the songs you put out. You should be obsessed with them. That's the assumption. And you made them out of love. It's not about charts for me. It's not about sales or numbers. Those simply, it's about getting the songs heard. All I care about ultimately is like, when you have so many songs coming, 150,000 songs a day coming out on streamers, how do you let the world know you exist in the modern era? That's the challenge of any artist now, is how do you do it without selling your soul? How do you do it without peacocking?
Sure.
If you live in an attention economy where the only person heard is the loudest, well, I don't like that. You know what I mean? So I have to think strategically of other ways to do it. I got to think, okay, in some markets, it's going to be the long march up the radio chart because we have so much support radio worldwide that, and then we see those songs eventually convert and start Shazamming. And then it's like, oh, wait, I've heard this everywhere. In my Uber ride, in the elevator. And in some territories that works in some cases. And then in some cases, it's like, I ain't worried, Top Gun. See if you can get yourself in like a movie. I have 3 songs coming out in movies this Christmas. And I know that not all 3 of them will connect. If one of them does, then it was worth it. Yeah. And so for me, it's not so much about, it's not at all. It's fun when songs become hits. It's more if I'm obsessed with a song like Runaway, it hurts when it doesn't do anything in the country you live in. When it's like no one knows it existed. And then when people do hear it, they're like, I love that song. Yeah. And you're like, thank you. Where'd you hear it? I was in Belgium. And it's like, God. Like, you know what I mean? And like, thank God our hardcore fans are out there pushing everything we put out. But like, you know, I'm also preaching to the choir because I tell artists all the time when I'm working with them, you have no control over the songs that you think are hits, that you want to be big. The song that you want to be big, 9 times out of 10, is absolutely not the song you want to be big.
It's so interesting how that works.
But Gracie Abrams, biggest hit of her career. It was a bonus cut. It's a bonus cut. You know what that means? It wasn't quite good enough to make the original. Yeah. Like, typically, I'm not saying with that song that's what she meant, but with a lot of us artists, it's like, didn't make the cut. You didn't make, what's it called? You didn't make first team. You're on the bench. Yeah. You're on the bench.
Junior
if
varsity.
we go into overtime, we're going to give you some minutes on the field. So go ahead and jersey up. That's like a bonus track. Yeah. But that's the crazy world we live in, is you have no control over the songs that the world wants to hear, which is both beautiful and mind-numbingly like chaotic. Yeah. It drives me crazy so much because sometimes you just want to like point the lens, a flashlight on the song, but just pay attention to this one for 5 minutes. Yeah. And if you don't like it, we'll move on. Yeah. But no control.
Well, a song over 3 billion streams now later that everyone seems to love is I Ain't Worried, which you just brought up off the Maverick soundtrack. So, you know, when you go into you mentioned you have 3 more songs for films coming out this Christmas. When you're going into the studio to do a song for a film, specifically Maverick, like how does that come about?
It comes about, it's pretty typically the same process every time, for the most part, which is someone who's overseeing the soundtrack, or if you're friends with, sometimes, I'd say the majority of the time it's a music supervisor or the person or label or entity that is overseeing the music in the film. Sometimes it's a label. Like one of the things I'm doing right now, I'm dealing with Republic Records Mercury Records, because they're overseeing the soundtrack for this one movie. And a lot of times it's the supervisor from the film studio. So like in the case of Maverick, it was Randy Spinlove, who's great at Paramount Pictures. And then sometimes, in some rare instances, I'm friends with the film's director or producer. And they'll just say, yo, can you do me a solid? I got these 2 scenes. So like I did a couple songs for, oh my God, now I'm spacing on the name of it. Wow, I won't even go into it because I can't remember the name of the movie. I just remember that the director was like 2 scenes. It's a very well-known movie, and I can't think of it. And I did like 2 songs for him as a solid because we're friends. So it comes about in different ways, but for the most part, it's a supervisor or a label overseeing the music. And they reach out and they say, here's the scene. It used to be cattle calls. When I started, it was more so cattle call. I love doing songs for film and TV because, taking it back to what I said earlier, having no control. Yeah. I don't do well with 0 control. It's like I can't function at my. So when you know at least this is real, it is coming out. And speaking of like existing, wanting your music to just be heard in the attention economy, it's like you have a $250 million movie with a $100 million advertising budget. That's called getting heard. Right. And so it's like that creates volume surrounding the song. So I always go to bat for film and TV. And then you get the call and then you watch the scene And ultimately, what I try to do is just write to the scene, exactly what is perfect for that scene, and fulfill what the movie wants. And then if you're lucky, if you do it right by the movie, and you're not just like, I want to write the thing that I want to write, then you might actually have a shot of the song connecting in a much bigger way. And then occasionally, like a song that I just found out this morning got placed in a pretty decent sized movie coming out this Christmas. It was more the head of the label saying, "Hey, can you send me? Here's the 2 scenes. This is just a text message brief. Can you send me songs that work for either of these scenes?" So I hit all my songwriters that are on my publishing company, sent them the brief. I got 6 songs in from them. I had 4 or 5 songs myself. I sent them all to the guy, and they filtered down, and we landed one of them in a big scene.
Nice.
I found out this morning. So
Great.
that was more of like a kind of a cattle call. It was just like, he's like, "Hey, I'm coming to you first," which may not be true, but I like to believe that it is. "I'm coming to you first. Can you send me what you got?"
Yeah.
And yeah, that was it.
With Maverick specifically, a film like that, Tom Cruise is so heavily involved.
Yeah.
Was he ever part of that process for you?
Oh my God. Yeah. Tom Cruise was involved from the beginning. I mean, he's so involved in everything he does. Music is hypercritical to him. He exhibits like a Wes Anderson level of control over his film. So every last detail. And this scene, he was like, I mean, this movie, I don't even know what it cost to make Top Gun Maverick, but it way too much. So the joke I made is like, it's $100 million music video.
Sure,
So
yeah.
so we have to get this right. And he took the first Zoom. He had never met me, but he took the first Zoom with me, and it was him and Jerry Bruckheimer and Randy from Paramount, and he just kind of sold me on the scene and how important it was and what kind of vibe he wanted and the energy he wanted and all that, and then asked me what I heard. And I just said, I hear something like 2010s indie music for some reason when I see this scene. I was referencing I referenced Foster the People. I referenced the Beach Boys at some point. I think I referenced the Gorillaz because I wanted like a big bass line, like Feel Good Inc. Or Clint Eastwood. And so I kind of gave him these references because that's what I heard in it.
Sure.
And I want it to be cool but lighthearted and feel kind of like timeless instruments. I mean, the I Ain't Worried song, the production, I literally think there's 5 instruments in the song. It's like live, it's like drums, bass, guitar, whistle. I mean, it's a very stripped song.
It starts with the whistle.
Yeah, it starts with the whistle. So, that was more or less that process. We did it very quick, and then the next day, after the Zoom, I did it the next morning with Brent and my other writer Tyler Spry, and we just traded. I actually found the original voice memos last week from that song where I'm like in the car beatboxing the drum pattern, and the moment I came up with the whistle, I have the original recording of that. I have the original chorus. So yeah, it's really funny to go through my voice memos and see it kind of come together over a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
And then we sent it in the next day. That was that's rare. That was a very, very fast turnaround for a film. But Tom gave me his number directly, immediately. He was like, "Here's my phone number, just text it to me." Send it to him, and he's like, called me immediately. "Don't write any more songs. That's it."
Sweet. Do you randomly text Tom Cruise now?
We text quite a bit.
Do you?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was just with him. I was with him on the set of Mission 8
nice.
in London, like last month, a month and a half ago, right when they're wrapping things up. But I was there and visited him on the set in South Africa and chased him in a chase helicopter when he was, the photo of him hanging upside down on the plane.
Yes. Are you there for that?
I'm literally in the helicopter holding the playback monitor for the director who was sitting right next to me.
What?
I'm in the in this we had this special forces helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
Who's flying around. I mean, it was the vomit comet. It was like basically, and I'm watching Tom
Like hang off the side of
upside down,
What?
drop from one plane to another. I mean, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm in the air over the mountains watching this thing with the doors open on the helicopter, just like, what am I doing?
Well, let's hope
but
you
Tom
get
was
to...
great. He's like, "Hey man, this is gonna be the best day of your life.
That's so
Hope you ate your
funny.
Wheaties."
I need you to trust me. One last time.
Well, let's bring it back to your album. So you just released your new single, Hurt, with Jelly Roll.
Jelly Roll, yeah.
Yeah, so actually one of the top comments on the song's YouTube page is, quote, "This is the collab I never knew I needed."
Yeah.
So if you want my heart, then babe, you're gonna have to work for it.
How did this collab come about?
It came about from me working with Jelly on his album. I did 3 songs on his album. And one of the songs came out in August. It's like the ESPN college football theme song now.
It is back.
The most electrifying thing.
Welcome to a new era of college football.
I light every bridge I see here just to watch it burn. If you've seen all the hell I've seen, it make your stomach turn. I think you know.
He and I just really hit it off. I hit it off a lot with Nashville artists and country artists. Part of it is from the South adjacent group, spent 20 years in Oklahoma, surrounded by nothing but country music, moved to Nashville, started songwriting in Nashville. So, and I've had some couple country number ones and a bunch of country cuts over the years. So I'm like a casual dater in country music. And Jelly and I just hit it off, man. Like, just the nicest guy. And I love what he's about, what he's doing. And I texted him like maybe a month after we'd done his songs for his album. It's like, hey, this might be a weird ask, but would you want to jump on a song together? He's like, in a heartbeat. He's like, done. That was it. Very easy. And the next thing I know, his team's like, they want to do a video. I was like, really? It's like, no, we want to do a video. It was 105 degrees when we shot that video.
Oh,
it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. I'm wearing all black. It was
Of
just
course.
like, oh my God. Yeah.
You know, obviously most fans know you as the frontman for OneRepublic, but you're such a prolific songwriter. I mean, you've worked with some of the biggest names in music spanning, years now. Out of all the stars that you've worked with, is there a studio session with an artist that stands out as like an all-time?
McCartney.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul McCartney.
Can you talk about that?
I was at his studio in England, where you can virtually see France from like on a clear day across the channel. And getting the call from him blew my mind. Getting invited to go to England blew my mind. And then the whole week I was there, just every day was like a dream. All the instruments from the most famous Beatles albums, he owns all of them. They're all there. So you're playing, the piano from the White Album. You're playing the drums from Sgt. Pepper, the original drum kit. You have all the original everything. So his studio is a functional museum.
Wow.
He walks over and he's like, hey man, this is the the Mellotron from Strawberry Fields. This is, and he starts playing it and tells me the whole story of how they came across that song. I mean, not only that, he's aware that he's a Beatle, that he's the most famous Beatle, and but without any real, he's almost, is the term bemused? I think that's the term. Bemused. What does bemused mean? I don't
Bemused,
know.
Yeah.
But he's almost amused by it, like kind of like gets it, like he's in on it and knows, but doesn't carry an air of self-importance either. He's somehow both simultaneously aware of it, but without it like imparting any weird vibes. And to that extent, like he's just extremely generous with Beatles stories. And that's the thing. It's like, cause you can't help yourself. You're like, dude, I have to know, like, happiness is a warm gun. Like, tell me about that. Or like, for me, it was like, Eleanor Rigby. I was like, what in the world? That's the song that made me fall in love with the Beatles, funny enough, was Eleanor Rigby. And it wasn't Eleanor Rigby. It was a different title. And the person had a different name. And he tells me the evolution of the story of how that song came to be. And then when he shows me where he got Blackbird from, it was like a German folk song. Like I was like, what? Like, and he plays this classic. I think I'm remembering this correctly. It might have been German or some classic guitar, like, from hundreds of years ago or something. He's playing it, and then you see, it's almost like a finger exercise, and it just kind of grafted its way into becoming Blackbird. But I mean, all songs have origins, right? So, but I think in our minds, the Beatles just plucked everything from thin air, right? Because they're the Beatles. They were the first ones to do it. But he's like, no, man. Even with our stuff, it all came from the years we spent playing in Hamburg and in Germany and gigging and playing pubs and, you know, whatever classical music they were raised on. I mean, you know, and listening to Little Richard and American blues and rock. And he's just an open book for all the Beatles stories. So you're in a Beatles museum with the Beatle, hearing all the stories you've always wondered about, and at the same time writing and recording them.
Crazy.
So it was mind blowing. And U2 and Bono, and I have stories for days on them, is also, I'd say, right up there.
Yeah.
Right up there.
I mean, you've worked with a lot of people that more contemporary, modern people would be like, oh my gosh, like Beyonce,
Adele.
Yeah. So when you're working in the studio with someone like Beyonce versus an Adele, like mentally, I would think that Beyonce would just be a little more serious and Adele would be more playful. Is that kind of on the nose, or is that totally off?
That's interesting that you think that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't characterize it as that. I would say, you know, Beyonce is obviously a consummate professional, but she's. I would say that they're both just completely apples and oranges. I think that, and you know, Beyonce, I think historically records way more songs than Adele will before she selects which ones will make the album. Adele is more, my experience with her, I can't speak for everyone, is more, this is my life up to this point since the last album came out. I only have so many real to life stories I care to tell. And if there's enough of those that are worth saying, I'll put out an album. And if there's not, I don't give a shit. Yeah. And I just saw Adele last weekend, the weekend before she closed. You know, she is they're both one of one. I can't compare them. Their demeanor in studio is completely different. You know, Adele shows up crazy early for sessions. I mean, we were starting, and granted, she had a younger child at the time. Angelo, I think, was 1 or 2. Anyway, you know, sessions were starting at 9:30 in the morning. Like for me, it's just like the wildest. You know, Beyonce is more driven by images. Here is the I don't want to say PDF file, but here's the images. Here's the world. That's the difference. Is Adele's like, you know, here's what I want to say today. This is what I went through. Beyonce's more, here's the world I want to occupy.
Oh, interesting.
Here's the colors. Here's the world, and kind of like I'm only, you know, I'll guide you as best that I can, but they're both, the only thing that's similar between the two of them, they're both 100% steering that ship. The outside influence that I haven't witnessed any, not a drop from either, and that's one thing that's interesting that I would say, because you know who else is like that? Miley too is like that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, it is single-mindedness. There's earmuffs on to the outside, horse blinders on to the outside world of, nope, this is my vision, hell or high water, win or fail. This is my vision. And most other artists, you're going to see in this era, especially younger artists, there's way more outside influence, partly because they live online.
Oh, yeah.
Where the artists that we're talking about kind of don't. So you're getting a lot more, and younger artists, newer to the game, tend to have, between social media and listening to their fans a bunch, which is very dangerous, by the way. I love our fans to death, but you have to be careful when you're writing songs. If you're writing what you think your fans want to hear, the statistical odds of completely missing that target is like 99.9. And so you have to write what you want to hear, because what they love is you, and what they want to hear is you and your perspective and your truth. And if you write some misguided or slightly convoluted version of that truth because you think you're going to hit popular culture, that's like a wasted bullet. Right. It's just not going to happen. I've never seen it work. So at the end of the day, even if you're nervous about it, you just got to shoot your shot from the gut. And I would say more. I wish. I think artists should trust their executive producers because they're creative. They are the collaborator, right? It's like Olivia trusting, her guy, or Michael Jackson trusting Quincy, right? But that should really be the only two people in the room in terms of like ultimate decision making.
Someone else who's really good at that, who you've worked with, is Taylor Swift on 1989.
She's the best.
You've previously stated that Taylor is, quote, the most talented writer you've ever been in the room with.
She is.
Why is that?
Pound for pound. She has a, I would say, her ability, first, she's just like a master of words. She's a wordsmith, right? So she has let's just break it down. Like, I think that, and I don't know if she read a ton as a child, but I'm assuming she did. People ask me, like, how can you become a great writer? I say, well, if you're starting from scratch, being a voracious reader as a child is an enormous gift for helping you as an adult writing songs. Like, the larger your vocabulary, the larger the bandwidth of your expression, your ability to articulate emotions and have wordplay and find odd rhymes and phrases that are bizarre. If you have a limited vocabulary, you just made it. It's a lot harder.
Yeah.
And so, and you pull from like clever turns of phrases from poets and other authors that you admire, right? So she just has a very, very large lexicon. You know what I mean? Like it's large, and she knows how to turn a phrase. She has the added benefit of learning how to write in Nashville. And I can't say this enough. Like, I don't care if you want to go into country music or you don't like it or you want to whatever. If you learn how to write songs in Nashville, there's a thing that you take away from that city that you can't get anywhere else. Their wordplay and ability to turn a phrase on its head inside of a chorus, and the art of every other line in the verse and the pre and everything pointing back towards the chorus. It's songcraft. And what a lot of songwriters and artists in LA and London and other places, inadvertently, the trap you fall into is you start to think that songwriting is magic, and that it's I'm just gifted. I'm gifted with songwriting. Like, and
it does seem like a gift for those of us that don't do it.
So to an extent, it is. Yeah. To an extent, it is. Right. I'm not saying it's not. It's not like it's like saying that LeBron's obviously tall, but he also has an amazing shot and other athletic abilities. So there is such a thing as being gifted as a songwriter. I'm not taking away from that. What I'm saying is, if it's just gift and there's no songcraft applied, that's like being just tall,
right?
And not going through your 10,000, 20,000 hours shooting free throws. That's the same. That's what I'm talking about. And songcraft, I see LA writers, and I'm an LA writer. Pop writers are 10 times more likely, in my opinion, it's one man's opinion, I could be wrong, I see are way more likely to get stuck on a lyric or in a writer's block. I don't really believe in writer's block, but to get stuck than Nashville writers. My experience with them. Because when I'm writing with like a seasoned Nashville writer, it's like the lyrical app that's running in the back of your brain.
Yeah.
It doesn't turn off for them. It just goes. They hit a roadblock and they go, whoop, all right, I'm gonna get around it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you think writing's magic and you're just waiting for God to show up every time and just you'll get stuck in verse land, and then you're like, crap, we didn't finish the song. Yeah. So I think you have to, having craft and learning the art of songwriting. Taylor nailed that. It's a long-winded way of saying that. So many things lined up. Yeah. I think she read a bunch. She has great vocabulary, and learning how to write in Nashville, I think, endowed her with preternatural ability at songwriting. Her ability to tap into her emotions at all times and read from her own inner dialogue, and make it interesting every time. It's just wild. Has
there been any other artists since then that you got into the studio with where you're like kind of on that same level?
I'll say this, like, Adele, when here's what's different is, not comparing, one's not better than the other at all. So I'm not gonna get caught in that shit.
No, we would never do that anyway.
Geez. So Taylor, it's like can just turn it on. I'm making a 13-song album next week. In a million years, Adele would never do that. That's not her. She's just, they couldn't be wired more oppositely if you hand wired them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're both equal level talents in their own right. But Adele, when she has something to say, and is in that zone of like, it's time to go, look out, man. She's absolutely as good as anyone on planet Earth. She's lethal as a songwriter. And she doesn't really need anyone else in the room. She doesn't really need anyone else in the room. And honestly, neither does Taylor. That's the truth. And some of the best artists who are songwriters that I've ever come across have one thing in common. They'll happily do it with you. They don't technically need you. And like if you can write 100%ers by yourself, lyric, melody, arrangement, chords, that's a lost art these days. That there used to be dozens of artists and writers that did that. And 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I grew up thinking Diane Warren was the, penultimate songwriter, and she wrote everything 100%. So my entire view of songwriting up until my late 20s, mid 20s was you go in a room by yourself and you write the song.
Yeah.
And it wasn't till literally in my 30s that I started doing like 3 people in a room. Like literally, not at all. I couldn't even fathom. I was like, how do you get anything done with 3 people in a room?
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah. It's just, it wasn't, it had nothing to do with like me being like a lone wolf or ego. It was just like, I literally, for a decade, was like, Diane Warren's written some of the biggest hits. And I read the book on her and everything about her. And I knew all of her songs. And they all had one thing in common. It was just her. And so I just thought, well, I guess I got to get really good at just being in a room by myself. And it was fun for years, and I still do write songs 100% myself. At least I try to do one a month. That used to be all I did. It's just it gets lonely, honestly, and it's slow. If I'm being honest, it's like I can do it, but it's freaking slow, man. Like, kind of gets boring and slow.
Yeah, that's fair. Another artist that you've worked with is Ariana Grande, and you've worked on multiple tracks with her.
Yeah.
As we all know, she's now starring in Wicked. And for you, because you were kind of front and center to her pop vocals, and now we're seeing her maneuver her vocals in such a different way, is that a surprise to you that she's been able to excel like that?
I don't think that she's doing anything now that she couldn't have done 10 years ago. I think it's just the phases of her own life. And I think that she's one of the absolute most she might be the most flexible singer vocalist in the pop sphere. If I'm like, that's a term that I could use. I don't ever say best singer, best. I mean, because that's subjective.
Sure.
I think Adele's tone is unmatched. I think that Ariana and Beyoncé, though, in terms of flexibility, there's just not a note they can't sing. There's not a run they can't do. They're shapeshifters. They can just do anything with their voice. It's the most flexible instrument in the world are Beyoncé and Ariana, and then there's more hard pressed to find men in that classification that I would say who have just like absolutely defy gravity with their voice. Hosier would be one of them, though. I think he's one of the greatest vocalists I've been in a room with. But it's impressive. I'm so impressed by what Ariana's done. And there's another person who's just like, she doesn't care what you think. She's doing her life, her way, doing the fact that she even popped out a #1 pop album earlier this year is just like, what? Like, while I'm making the biggest movie in history, it's like makes us all look like, it's like, hold my beer, bro. You know what I mean? Like, let me finish this for you. It's like, like I already work too much, and I'm like, people who know me, like, it's not a badge I wear with pride, believe it or not, but they're like, he's one of the like hardest working, busiest guys, and I oscillate between so many different things outside of music. But then people like Ariana, I'm like, I'm not doing anything compared to that girl. It's like I need to figure my life out. I need to get my shit together, because Ariana is just like, I think she's. I'm convinced there's 2 of them. Like, there's 2. She has a twin.
A clone. Yeah.
She has a twin. 100%. She has a twin. I don't know where the other one hides, but like they just trade off, because otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Have you ever written a song for someone and kind of wished you kept it for yourself?
Yes. I was. It's funny. I love Beyonce to death, and continue to try and submit songs and write for her, and worked on Cowboy Carter. But one of the demos that I absolutely played way too many times was XO, and my approach to that production was different than what came out. And that was the one song where I was like, now I would have changed some of the lyrics because I'm singing, even in the demo, I'm singing it with a more feminine tone. This is before you could use AI and all that stuff. So I'm singing it more like brighter, softer, like when I used to pitch songs for women, I would change my tone to be more feminine.
Your love is bright as ever, even in the shadows. Baby, kiss me before they turn the lights out. Your heart is glowing, and I'm crashing into you.
So I would sing it a little different, and I'd obviously change a couple words here that clearly are a girl singing to a guy.
Right.
But the song itself, we performed it live in Red Rocks with a Colorado orchestra, and I just watched it back the other week, and I was like, my band was like, bro, why did we not keep that song? Like, that would have been such a hit on us. And I'm like, shit, yeah, it might have been. Like, it might have been. And like, yeah, if you're curious, you can go watch on YouTube. I think it's on live from Red Rocks. We have a documentary actually coming on that soon. That might be the only one.
Yeah.
There are songs where I'm like maybe slightly jealous of them because I'm like, man, I wish I could have done. Like, I had a hit with that on this artist, and then I started singing these songs live now within OneRepublic, and I'm like, we might have had a hit with that.
What else?
I mean, of the songs that we lead, like, it's funny. I don't regret "Sucker" at all with Jonas Brothers, simply because I don't believe that lyric coming from me, and my band, I think, was maybe a little, they're like, dude, that song was such a huge hit. We could have had a hit with that. I don't think so.
I'm a sucker for you. Say the word and I'll go anywhere blindly. I'm a sucker for you.
I don't think that would have been a hit on us. I think that the Joe Bros were like, more than half my job. I hate to say this. More than half my job in the last 5 years is not writing songs. It's after they're written, like using whatever my internal barometer is for pop culture, global culture, pop culture, observing, taking it in, calculating where I think it's leaning or going to lean or shift to, anticipating that based on where I put a song or what artist I'm working with. And it used to just be, I like this artist, I love their voice. Done. That's all the decision I need, right? Now it's, do they have something to say? Is their fan engagement real? Do they have a real fan base? Is it growing? Do I think I can be additive to that? Or are we going to throw another song into the void with 150,000 songs tomorrow? And I hate to say that, but it becomes like reading the cultural tea leaves has become, in any songwriter and producer, if anyone who watches this, who writes, produces, and competitively, right, professionally, it's not popular to say this, but I don't care. I've been doing this too long to like kind of be dishonest or bullshit. It's the truth. It's like, I have to pay attention, not just, I have to love your voice and find, or at least find something unique about it that I can work with. And i.e. love. I need to love your voice. I need to like you. And I also now, which never was the case, need to be like, okay, but will anyone care? Is there a cultural moment? It's all about creating moments now. Not so much, yes, teasing songs on TikTok and trying to get viral and traction and all that stuff. But it's more so now it's about creating moments. What can you do, whether that's the feature you did or you drop the video, the thing, you also do some other crazy thing the day of release. And the song is about something culturally relevant that just happened. I hate to say that, but it's like, you know, what's the hook?
Right.
Like, it's not just like, oh, we have a great story. It's set in a beautiful location, right? But what's the why? Like, again, we're talking about the attention economy. It's really hard out there. So like songs like that, you know, I was like, these Joe Bros, I'm aware of their fan base. I know how insane. They're huge.
Yeah,
These
they
guys
are.
are like stadium acts.
Yeah.
And they blew up before we did. Like they had a TV show, like, and they're consummate professionals. I knew that they would work the song. I mean, that's part of it. It's like, if I work with an artist, I do all this work and then you just drop it and then don't do shit. It's like soul destroying. And it's like, well, what, you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather just put it out on me because I'll work it. But I knew the Joe Bros. I'm like, I trust them with this. I trust them with this. And they're great partners and we're going to do a lot more songs and they're great writers. So we're going to write a bunch of shit together too. So that was like a win-win-win. Most of the other songs I have, like, you know, I had Maps, Maroon 5. Do I think we could have had a hit with that? Maybe. I can sing it, but it's not just about singing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, do I believe it coming from you? Do I believe it coming from you? And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what I have to ask myself if I'm giving a song away. I'm dealing with it right now. I have a stack of songs that I'm singing the demos on. You know, I have stuff that I could do solo right now. I have stuff that could be features. And the only question I ask is, do I believe me singing it? And that's, at the end of the day, how I pick between a song I give away and a song that I keep. Do I believe that coming from me?
Nice. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like I learned so much. I'm like, I wish I was a musician so that I could be a part of the process. But I just talk
I
about
don't know
it.
if you wish that.
I do.
know.
Well, I talk about it, so
Pick
that's
a very
good enough for me.
auspicious time to join the club. Maybe get a time machine. Go back like 15 years. You're going to be good.
Done.
Yeah.
I'll call you 15 years ago.
Yeah, let me know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.